What is going on, guys? It is time for another Pop Culture Crisis movie review. This time we are going to be reviewing Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It is the 2024 Ghostbusters film, which is a sequel to the 2021 Ghostbusters Afterlife, starring Carrie Coon, Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, and McKenna Grace. Mary, what did you think of the film?
I think that this was consumer DEI garbage. I found nothing enjoyable about it. And also, I should say, I'm not coming at this as a fan of the franchise anyway, but I've seen the first two, and I saw the 2016 Ghostbusters, which obviously everyone hates. I didn't see Afterlife, so maybe if I had seen Afterlife, that would have gotten me familiar with them, but... Yeah, it's a no from me.
I think that you not seeing Afterlife puts you at a huge disadvantage on this one. I liked it. Here's my critique. I don't think it needed to exist, and the reason why I think that is true is kind of it's going to go over your head a little bit because you didn't see Afterlife. So I believe that Afterlife, which really is in a lot of ways a love letter to Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman, who were both part of the original project. Harold Ramis, of course, playing Egon Spengler. Like, it's a love letter to his character. And it does a great job of introducing new characters while really, really showing a lot of appreciation to both the original director and this other actor who have passed away. And I thought that the ending was so good that there was no need to make a second one. But that's not really what I'm grading this movie on the scale of, right? Because there is the argument, like, does a movie ever need to exist? Now, you could make the claim that if you're going to make a sequel, especially one to a franchise that's as beloved as the 80s Ghostbusters, and then one that does the miracle of kind of actually bringing people together however many decades later, especially after the 2016 one did so badly, you could make the argument that for films like that, you have to work harder to prove that you need to exist than other films do, like than just something that's a new property. Okay?
Yeah.
So for me, for this, does it need to exist? No. But if we're talking about a family film for you to bring your kids to, especially if you're a fan of the original franchise, I do believe that if you've got kids and you like the Ghostbusters original, there was a lot of, I called it multi-generational excitement, because there was, families with kids at the theater.
I do not think this is a family-friendly movie. There were so many sex jokes, and I don't think it's appropriate for kids.
Okay. Well, I think that depending on at your discretion,
especially when that character Lucky, who is only she's like 18 in the movie.
Lucky.
She kept making jokes about a sex dungeon and having loud sex and blah blah blah. Like, that's really not what I would consider part of a family-friendly movie.
So, but it's aimed towards kids because of the family. It's aimed towards families because of the family element of the film, which is a big part of it. Now, to me, that wasn't a huge part of the original Ghostbusters, which is a critique. So, in this film, there's a couple of the negatives that I would have is that, like Dan Aykroyd's character, who I like because Dan Aykroyd is part of the original Ghostbusters. Him and Zedmore, so their characters that's played by Ernie Hudson, they're in it far more than Bill Murray is. Bill Murray's literally just there to kind of round out the trio of original characters that are still alive. I mean, Annie Potts is in there. The other, others from the original, Peck, the bad guy who's the mayor, who they even get their dickless joke in on him at the end. That's a callback to the original film as well. Like, I liked him, but it was a lot of exposition dump. And for Phoebe, which is McKenna Grace's character, a lot is put on her shoulders, and I think she does a good job with it. I really like her in this role, and that's because in the 2021 film, she really did carry that movie. That was kind of high times for things like Stranger Things, which obviously is played into a lot because Finn Wolfhard is in here.
Yeah.
My biggest critique, I think that Mary and me may disagree on whether you should go see it as a family. I think more families are going to go see this, and I think kids will get more appreciation out of this perhaps than the adults who were original diehard Ghostbusters fans. But like Finn Wolfhard's character doesn't need to be in this, and there's ways around that. Like
he really had no
If you removed his character, Like nothing in the story would change. So what they needed to do, they needed to tighten up the casting. So one of my biggest complaints here is that Kumail Nanjiani really is, he's hit or miss when it comes to comedy. And it feels like he was just kind of dropped into this movie and expected to give his comedic timing. And I'll be completely fair. In our theater, people seem to enjoy it. Like, if you like that, that's fine. But I felt like with some rewriting of the script, so he's a character, we're not going to get too into spoilers here, but he's a character called, like, the Fire Master or the Fire Starter? Okay.
The Fire Master,
You need to, what they could have done, because he plays a pivotal role in this movie, you could have rewritten the script in some way to make Finn Wolfhard's character that character, so that he had more to do, and there was just too many people on screen. But my complaints for this movie are more on a technical level. I don't think kids, which is the target audience for this movie, is adults who have kids who are going to bring their kids to see Ghostbusters. Okay, I don't think kids are going to care about an overpacked cast.
No, and they're in this firehouse and in the climax of the movie, they're all on different floors of the firehouse, and you have no idea what's going on or where anyone is, or why anyone's there. They even joked, like, who is that guy? Like, none of these characters even know each other outside of the family.
I think they do a good job with Phoebe, and I'll say why.
Why is that kid named Podcast?
Because he has a podcast. That's literally his nickname. His nickname's Podcast.
Okay, it's just like member berries, and then we'll add some like 2024 relevant lingo. Like we'll talk about the fact that Twitch streamers exist.
I like,
and then all of you are gonna make pog faces.
Yeah.
Like it's just too consumerist.
It is in a lot of ways, but the thing is it's going to be about what, like, people complain about consumerism all the time, but for most people, how does the consumerism make you feel? Let's be honest, right? So it's going to come down to whether consumerist nature or consumerist filmmaking is bad is a debate that can be had endlessly. The question is, does it do its job? Does it do the job of sending people out of the theaters in a better mood than when they found them? When the movie focuses on the family elements, I think it does fine. The problem is, for a lot of the adults, I don't think they think of that necessarily entirely as a Ghostbusters film, but I think the kids will leave this movie being mildly or entertained or regularly entertained. I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. I think that with Phoebe, with the character of Phoebe, they do a good job of continuing to explain why she needs the screen time. So, for example, in this film, she really is the reason everything goes bad and then has to get herself out of it because she gets tricked by a ghost named Melody to release Garaka, which is essentially the demon that is summoned and becomes the bad guy at the end. Again, consumerist demon, very generic in his description. But the point is she then has to get herself out of the problem.
I mean, but the solution to the problem is like, oh, but my proton blaster or whatever, I coated it in brass.
Yes.
So like it's just all of the dumbest plot devices I've ever seen. And then, you know, my biggest problem with Phoebe's character is this stupid queer baiting storyline that they used, which is obviously queer baiting.
Yes, it is.
And you're also going to make sure that she like wears flannels and has a mullet and stuff. She
looks like she did in the first
I was
movie.
way too distracted by how similar she looks to Kamala Harris's stepdaughter.
She does.
It was way too much.
Which is funny, because if you look at McKenna Grace out of costume, she looks nothing like that.
I'm sure she doesn't. Yeah, she's very pretty, but
it's funny because there's this meme that goes around and says Kamala Harris's stepdaughter looks like every character from Seinfeld rolled into one. You're not wrong. I didn't even think about that. But so the Melody storyline is a weird Casper storyline. In a way. I could have done without that, but it kind of makes sense because they use her as a way of showing that she has to get herself out of the trouble that she got herself into in the film because they don't want to portray like an actual like human bad guy for some reason. Peck is the bad guy, but only so much as he is kind of a nuisance to them because he was a nuisance to them in the original. In the original film, he's the bad guy per se because he turns off the containment unit that releases all the ghosts. So he's like having him in the film is kind of funny because I'm like, that dude should be in jail for what he did in the original one. But now he's the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, again, I judge most of the movies that I watch based on did I leave the movie, pleasantly, mildly, or well surprised? Did I find it enjoyable? Did I find it inoffensive? I did. And yes, I would agree with you that in a lot of ways, this is as member berries and as consumerist as Hollywood can get with most things. But again,
the mini puffs.
Those were
the
the first
librarian ghost.
Everyone knows. Well, that's a callback too. But
I know.
Like the Stay Puft Marshmallows again. All of these things are fine to me if they're done in a way that leave me. This is why I don't complain about it as much when I don't like it. Right? When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. I would say for most people, if you watched our reviews, if you tend to agree more with Mary's takes on things, this is why these types of things are so good, right? If you've watched our reviews and you agree more with Mary's takes on movies, then I would say go ahead and skip it. But if you agree sometimes with what I have to say, I think it is worth bringing your kids to and spending some time over the weekend at the theater. There was a lot of laughter. Like I didn't find Camille's jokes. I found a couple of them really good.
Hearing people laugh at unfunny jokes makes me angry. Personally,
Camille is all about, like, for him, it's all about his voice and timing. Right? Yeah. And some of them hit and some of them didn't.
Which means that Kumail Nanjiani was playing Kumail Nanjiani, not a character.
Yep. And like I said, his character more than any of them, I felt like the best thing they could have done is really tighten up the script and find a way to incorporate all the characteristics of his power that he gains and give that to Finn Wolfhard, because Finn Wolfhard is supposedly supposed to be, like, if you look at the IMDb for this movie, McKenna Grace is billed fourth. I don't know how it showed up in the actual film. It says Carrie Coon, Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace. He's got like nothing to do throughout the film. There's just too many characters. But again, I don't think that the average movie-going audience that's just going to be entertained, and that's what a lot of people want. They just want to be entertained. I don't think that they're going to know or care about stuff like that. I think they just want to go see a kind of fun-looking movie with a family story element that I didn't find was all that bad. I did find the part, when I like Paul Rudd in this role because it's very, like, he doesn't ever pull the focus onto him. Mm-hmm. Right? He does exactly what Paul Rudd is supposed to do in these scenes, which is kind of be aw shucks Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Right? And the part at the end where she calls him dad by accident was, I groaned. I'm like, I don't know if a kid who gets like a stepdad at 15 is ever doing that. But, we'll skip it. I actually am okay with a little bit of Hollywood optimism. Like the idea that a 15-year-old child would then call their stepdad dad after like just a couple of years is probably more optimistic than I can imagine Hollywood has been in the last 20 years.
I still found this movie soulless, but if it's inoffensive enough for the mass consumer audience,
well, like you said, the like when you went to the theater, it had the like the Stay Puft like drinks trays, and it's made for that purpose. So if you go to AMC, they've got Dune had the Dune popcorn bucket, they've got the Proton Pack popcorn bucket. The containment popcorn bucket. It's Hollywood consumerism, but it's done on a property that people still have a lot of good feeling towards because it's not 2016 feminist Ghostbusters. They're like anything but 2016 feminist Ghostbusters.
Yes, so, I think that's why this movie is going to get grace, because it's better than the 2016 Ghostbusters, but that doesn't mean it's actually a good movie. That means you're comparing it to something that was like not just below average, but actually abysmal.
Gotta make do with what you got these days. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.